Hey everybody, welcome to the Mother FIGRs podcast. I'm Caitlin Darkangelo, founder and co-owner of FIGR, Midwestern wife, and girl mom. I'm a dual certified pregnancy and postpartum trainer, majored in exercise science from the University of Michigan, earned my master in management degree from Duke University, and have been coaching in the fitness industry for over a decade. This podcast dives into all things pregnancy and postpartum fitness, especially in how to navigate strength and intensity training in these seasons. Whether you're in it yourself, trying to get pregnant, or coaching this population, you're in the right place. I'm excited to share personal experiences, client stories, guest interviews, and evidence-based strategies to give you the guidance, insights, and clarity needed to navigate these seasons with confidence. And with that, let's get rolling. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Mother FIGRs podcast. Today I am going to do a Q&A style podcast episode. I just this week did a coach's course training for my Mother FIGRs Coaches Certification with Innerverse, which is a local Pilates studio. They have a few different locations. So we had about 25 of these Pilates instructors doing the course. It was about a 4-hour workshop, hands-on. It was so much fun, honestly. It was a great time. And there were so many great questions and topics that came up. Obviously, they had more of the questions surrounding around Pilates, but they really do apply to you no matter what activity it is that you love to get into, whether you're a coach or just an active mom that wants to apply it to your own pregnancy and postpartum journey. We talked obviously a little bit more on the pregnancy side of things because I am currently 32 weeks pregnant. So it was really fun to just have them put me into like different positions on the reformer and like see in real time what my core wall was doing. And so we focused a little bit more on the pregnancy side just because I'm currently pregnant, but I think we're going to do a postpartum one with that same group after baby comes, which will be equally as fun. So some of these topics, or most of these topics, I have 4 different ones I want to highlight today in today's episode. They focus a little bit more on the pregnancy side of things, but again, they kind of apply to a lot of different, areas of pregnancy and postpartum fitness. So first one, and this caused like a big, awesome ruckus of questions, and like we kind of dove deep into this topic, is diastasis. There is a lot of misconceptions surrounding it, especially when it comes to an activity like Pilates, which is super core based and core intensive, which is fantastic. However, when things are more core focused, we tend to hyper fixate ourselves on like potential wrongness and things like that. And there's a lot of misconceptions when it surrounds diastasis. So part of my Mother FIGRs Coaches course is a workbook. And so I have a whole in-depth section specifically on diastasis, which then helps the coaches learn how to test diastasis or test for diastasis in traditionally or typically postpartum moms. There is I guess first of all, what diastasis is the stretching, elongating, and lengthening of the core wall during pregnancy. So there is something called the linea alba that stretches. It's like that connective tissue that runs down the midline of your core. And then your rectus abdominis muscles are on either side. During pregnancy, our core wall has to accommodate baby somehow. It has to go somewhere. And so the core wall is the muscle system that is going to stretch and elongate and potentially weaken to allow for space for baby. This happens in up to 100% of pregnancies if you reach that 36, 37 week mark. It is not avoidable by any exercise, by anything. And there's a lot of different things that can cause it that are more genetic based or not modifiable risk factors. However, something that is a modifiable risk factor is the strength of your core wall going into pregnancy and throughout pregnancy that can help prevent a more severe or clinically relevant diastasis postpartum. So using the term diastasis during pregnancy is actually kind of misleading because diastasis makes it sound like you have a condition or have a problem. However, during pregnancy, this is what will happen to your core wall. So what we're really talking about with diastasis is postpartum, how much tensile strength and how close will those muscles return back to they're never going to go back to factory settings. We had a long period of stretching. They can return and they can get stronger. And we can, in a lot of moms, we do see it come all the way back. It's not a guarantee, but the goal is postpartum to get that strength back and that core wall connection back, that proximity of the rectus abdominis muscles closer back to that midline. And so I say all this because both at this Innerverse coaches course and in almost every single one of the postpartum classes I've ever ran, when I test moms or just anybody for diastasis, the majority of people think that they have diastasis postpartum or outside of pregnancy postpartum world, but the majority of people actually don't. I actually talked with a pelvic floor PT about this too. I was like, do you see a lot of moms who think that they have it, but they actually don't? Like how common do you actually see diastasis prevalence in your active moms that come in? And she kind of said the same thing. She's like, most moms think that they have it, so a clinically relevant diastasis would be greater than 2 finger widths apart. So the rectus abdominis muscles is the width between those is greater than 2 finger widths. And then the second piece of having a clinically relevant diastasis is the depth or the lack of tension that your fingers dip into that space. So when you push down with your 2 fingers into that kind of crevice or that, what do I want to call it? That concave, space. There's no like connective tissue that's like bouncing back like a trampoline. It just, your fingers just sink into that space and there's no tension there to drive those fingers or like have a feedback effect. So that's what I'm talking about of having diastasis. This is after baby, not during. And so generally more people will think that they have it than they don't because of the fear surrounding it. And so this kind of led also to the topic of diastasis and coning and the difference between the two, because there is a big difference. Diastasis, again, will happen during pregnancy. So I was showing them my pregnant belly, like when I would lean back, you could see the space. First of all, I was showing them coning. So that's when like you kind of get this rounding effect in the middle of that midline of your core. It's where pressure is going. So I was leaning back. I was showing them how I could get my core to cone or dome in the center of my ab wall. You could physically see it. And I have about 4 fingers of width between my rectus abdominis muscles right now, because that's where the coning was occurring. However, the coning, I can control with my breath and my core engagement to get it to completely go away, even though I currently have a 4 finger width diastasis at 32 weeks pregnant. So diastasis is the width and the depth or the tension of that core tissue in the middle. The coning is just the outward effect of mismanaged pressure and mismanaged core engagement. So the two are very different. You can have a diastasis, but manage your coning symptoms or like coning experience with correct breath timing, correct breath technique, and technicality around it. And then that core engagement. So engaging the transverse abdominis or those deep core muscles and properly timing that with your exhales of your breath can get that coning effect to go away, even though you have diastasis, and vice versa. Moms who don't, or anybody who does not have a clinically relevant diastasis, so they don't have that 2 or greater finger widths apart and they have tension down their midline, they can make themselves cone also, because that's where the pressure is going to go. It's the path of least resistance when you're talking about your core wall. Pressure isn't going to go to the ribs. It's not going to go to the pelvis. It's not going to go to the sides. That tissue along the midline is the quote unquote weakest part of your core wall. So that's where pressure is going to go if you don't know how to properly manage it, which is where breath technique comes in, which is where core engagement comes in, and where the two pair up, which is why it's such a staple of pregnancy and postpartum fitness. So this was a really, really fun, we talked about this for probably like half an hour, and then it tied into a lot of the rest of our course. But just seeing that visually, that I can make myself cone. I have a 4 finger width diastasis currently, but you can manage it with techniques That is how we help heal the core wall postpartum, which is why it's so important to practice during pregnancy. So we get that mind to body connection. We learn how to do things properly. That is going to help us return our core strength and our core tension postpartum, which will get us back to our activities that we love to do quicker, faster, smoother, and all the things that we want. So that was really cool. Number 2 topic I wanted to talk about, and this also was a theme that kind of stretched throughout the night, was what are some things in real time in a class setting specifically that moms would be expressing, or what is like the verbiage that they would be using that would show me as a coach what they are feeling in their body, and then how do I use that to then adjust their training. So whether you're a coach listening to this obviously directly applies to you, or if you are an active mom that wants to apply this to themselves, I'm going to go through some different symptoms that you might experience and then tie it to the, not condition, but the thing that those words are tying into. So then if I have this, or if I'm experiencing this, then maybe I have this, and then that can help you also navigate your own symptoms if you don't have a coach that watches you all the time or go to classes or things like that. So the first one was symphysis pubis dysfunction. Common signs or words that clients will use, and I have experienced this myself, so I can kind of relate. They will express pain, pinching, a sharp shooting pain, or kind of words surrounding sharp and pain at a very specific spot in the front of the pelvis. So the symphysis pubis, or the pubic symphysis, is the joint, the ligament that is joining the two halves of the pelvis or the hips together. And so right at that connection point, right down the center of your pelvis, right in the middle, is this joint. And during pregnancy, our pelvis tends to get a little lax, and that can be one of the areas where things are a little bit more painful because this is a connection point. Same thing with in the back. SI joint pain is also a joint in the back, and joints, the specific spot where the joint happens or like comes together, those are common pain point areas. So symphysis pubis dysfunction can be expressed by clients by sharp shooting pain, pinching at the very front and center of your pelvis. Things that tend to spark this kind of pain include single leg work. So lunges specifically can be a tough one. In my first pregnancy, I even had a hard time, and I have had a hard time a little bit here in this pregnancy, but I now know better techniques to manage it. But things like donkey kicks or bird dogs or fire hydrants, anytime that you're leaving one leg down and there's like a shearing effect or a moving effect of the other side, things like Cossacks and lateral lunges, things like that too. Anything that can cause this like separation of the legs in any way, or a shearing back and forth of the legs. Those are specific movements that create these symptoms, which would then show you that maybe your client or you have symphysis pubis dysfunction. And there's varying levels of this. I have a very moderate case of it this time. My first pregnancy, I had like a 10 out of 10 issue with it. So there's a lot of variation in when these symptoms occur, if they're all the time or just during specific movements. But that's something like a real-time expression that a client would give you. Second one is a client experiencing or telling you like they feel this like falling out feeling or pressure, heaviness, strain, kind of below. They'll maybe if they're super comfortable with you, they'll just say like, I feel like stuff is falling out of my vagina. Like people might just like say that straight up. But if they're a little bit more conservative, or if they don't have a close enough relationship with you, they'll kind of just say like, yeah, it just feels like heavy down there, or like a toothache down there. That's another word I've heard before. This can be a bunch of things. It could mean pelvic organ prolapse. So that's when your pelvic organs descend or have more mobility and go down deeper into that pelvic bowl and create that pressure feeling. So just things are heavier, especially during pregnancy when you've got a lot of pressure up top, is kind of pushing those organs down too. This also, for me specifically, those symptoms were sparked from unresolved pelvic floor tension. So earlier on in this pregnancy, I went to a pelvic floor therapist, and she noticed that the posterior part of my pelvic floor, so back more towards my butt, was tighter. And that tension was making my front half of my pelvic floor do all the work, essentially. This is very simplified terms. And so that was creating the feeling of heaviness and strain because I didn't have my whole pelvic floor working in sync. I had one half that was like clenched and not doing nothing, and the front half was doing all the work. And so these symptoms or these expressions and verbiage could mean pelvic organ prolapse, but it does not mean that that's what they have. It could be tightness or tension as well as there. I mean, for all these, there's like 100 different things that they could be, but these are the most common culprits per se of these symptoms. The third one that's super common, and these are the three I'm going to focus on for this little section right here, is one, they'll say it hurts to sit down or lay down, or you'll physically see them squirming on the ground. They'll kind of like shift to one side and try to lift up one hip or keep going back and forth, and you just see them like not getting comfortable in a laying position. This can relate to SI joint pain or tailbone pain. So like I was talking about in the back, that's where things come together posteriorly. And so during pregnancy, that has a tendency to get some more pains because that's a connection point of the hip joint or the pelvis joint. So sometimes contact itself can be painful, of like literally just having your back laying on the ground. That itself can be very stimulating or very like sharp for the mom. So in a class setting, I would have, just move them out of that position because it's that physically is painful and they can't lay. Long term, we want to try to release tension in the pelvic floor because the pelvic floor ties directly into the tailbone. And if the pelvic floor muscles are tight, holding the tailbone tight, a lot of times pain is related to tension or tightness in the pelvic floor, not weakness. And so over time, if you have the ability or the skills to help them relax their pelvic floor, maybe not in that class setting, but in other sessions, that would be just something to focus on for those moms. So those are three like common just symptoms or things that clients might express or that you might feel that would indicate those specific situations that could be happening. And then depending on the severity, there's a lot of ways to adjust exercise around those, but those are common ones. Number 3, so I have 4 questions. This is number 3. We have the topic of when to stop an exercise or when to like pull a client out of an exercise versus when you should just modify and, figure things out. So this is more of like a framework because this can apply to any activity, any movement, and there's a lot that goes into it. But in general, I always start with modifying, which is a different mindset than what I think a lot of moms come into the gym are told or into a class setting. It feels natural for me because I'm in the setting all the time, but I think it's less common than not. So for instance, if you go like to your doctor and you say squatting hurts my knee, they'll just tell you to stop squatting. And instead, my approach, and I think a lot of coaches' approaches are, okay, like, why is your squat hurting? Like, let's look at a bunch of different things and figure out if we can keep you squatting because there's so many benefits to that movement. So that's the mindset going into it because there's normally a deeper lying cause. It's normally not the movement itself. It's normally something else going on. So in terms of like my framework or things that I think about in terms of like how we're going to modify or like why, what's going on. First, I'll ways to modify. We're just going to go with that. Ways that I start modifying. I will first decrease the weight because we got to get to the base root of the movement pattern, what's going on, making sure our functional mechanics are good. So the first thing I'll do generally is decrease the weight, or in Pilates world, which is what we talked about, was increasing the resistance of the springs on the reformer. The second piece, and if that helps, decreasing weight helps the symptom, cool. That just means that weight was too high of a threshold for them and we needed to take it down a little bit. Now we can work underneath that threshold and build up strength over time. Second one is range of motion. So a lot of times bigger range of motions tend to spark more symptoms. So let's try to stay in control within a shorter range of motion and see where in the range of motion that symptom starts to occur. For a lunge, for instance, let's go into a quarter squat and come back up. If you feel good, cool. That wasn't the spark spot. That wasn't the trigger point. Let's go down another inch and let's just find that exact spot in that range of motion where symptoms are occurring. And we kind of build on from there. Over time, our goal obviously is to get back to full range of motion. I also like to work with the speed of the movement. So slowing down the movement, going for more tempo reps. Sometimes we're just going too fast, which would disconnect us with our body mentally, and also like our muscles just like are like, what the heck is going on? And so we want to like make sure we are activating the right muscles, having that brain to body connection, and slowing down the movement allows us to really pinpoint correct form and keep us all connected as a whole system. So slowing down the movement would be another modifiable thing that I'm trying to find the source of the symptom for. If slowing down the movement helps and does the trick, takes the symptom away, perfect. That just means that we need to stay more focused and connected and aware during our workouts, or just to have like that deeper muscle stability or muscle activation during that movement. So that's that one. Simplifying the movement. So a lot of times in Pilates specifically, there's a lot of pieces to the movement. So maybe you're twisting and then you're, extending the reformer back and forth. So just simplifying the movement or taking out maybe the extension piece, or maybe if you're pulsing a movement, maybe you're just holding a piece or holding the movement. So thinking about simplifying the movement, breaking it down to its very base and just focusing on one piece at a time. Maybe it was just all the things combined that was creating or sparking the symptoms. So let's pull things apart, do one piece of it at a time. Maybe one of those specific pieces is what sparked it, or maybe it was the combination of all of them together. So just thinking of ways you can simplify the movement, whatever it may be. And then there's also the part of breath timing with core engagement on the exhale. So when we're inhaling, we're going to be lengthening the muscles. Exhale is when we then engage the muscles. And because the deep core connects directly to or attaches directly to the pelvis, by exhaling properly and then also doing the core engagement properly, we can help stabilize the pelvis, not just from the top, but also that pelvic floor from the bottom, which is also cued in by core muscle engagement and by breath. So this is part of more of the pregnancy, postpartum lens of modifying movements. This is not necessarily a modifying thing, but wanted to throw it in this modifying bucket because we can slow the movement down and really make them focus, or make you focus on the exhale and core engagement piece. And a lot of times that can help stabilize the pelvis enough to reduce and remove pains. So that's a piece of modifying that I think goes unnoticed by most trainers and facilities, because that is a pregnancy and postpartum specific piece of the puzzle a lot of times. So cueing that core engagement itself can help stabilize the pelvis, which might be just enough stimulus that it needs to be able to then do the movement without pain. And then lastly, within this modifying bucket that I wanted to highlight is sometimes the body just needs more time or more repetitions to learn the movement enough to not be in pain and learn the correct form and get into it. So for instance, they had me doing this like inner leg move or inner thigh move where one of my feet were planted on the like stationary part of the reformer. And then there was my other leg was on the moving part of the reformer. So it was like this inner thigh that was in more of like a triangle. So like one leg would push out and then one leg would come back in. That for the first few reps sparked some symptoms for me. And that was not great. Like I thought that I wouldn't be able to continue doing that movement. However, as we continued talking, we kind of got on different topics and I stayed in that position. Over a few reps, I started to feel no symptoms. So I think there's something to say about not giving our body enough time to learn a movement or to ease into it. There's a lot of physical and mental connections and like connection to movement. So giving yourself maybe a little bit more time or more reps or more rounds, whatever it is, to see maybe if it is just a newness thing or just like at the beginning of like your workout overall, you're going to feel a little bit tighter, a little bit more stiff because you're not warmed up. But as the muscles continue to warm and get activated, then things feel more fluid and better and less like you're weak feeling. So just give your body a little bit more time maybe on the movement. So I wanted to throw that in there as kind of in this modifying bucket, but just a little caveat. So those are all ways that you would know. So that's my framework, is if somebody is asking like, when should I tell a client to stop versus when should I have them try to modify? I generally will always go straight to the modifying stuff. And if that all doesn't work, then we get into this stop bucket. So the reasons to stop an exercise would one be if after all of those things, and I'm sure there's like a bunch of other ones, I'm not touching on everything right now. But if all those things don't work, then maybe let's stop and let's reevaluate outside of class time, do a one-on-one session and try to ease things out or get to the root cause that way. 2, if a client doesn't want to, if they're like, I think lunges are going to totally split my pelvis apart, I don't even want to try, I don't care what modifications you're going to give me, they do not have to do a lunge. Like you do not have to go through the whole modifying list of things just to try to keep the lunge in. Just try to adapt and be a little detective on the spot and see what other movements they can do that they want to do. And then there's the whole medical side of things, of reasons to stop exercise. So there's a whole list of like absolute contraindications to exercise, but in the class itself, if the mom or whoever starts feeling dizzy or faint, fatigued, passes out, all the things that are normal, not normal, the things that like are obvious for stopping an exercise, those are things or reasons that you would just like go straight to stop. And again, I'm sure there's other ones that are that I'm not talking about, but those would be like kind of bigger buckets of reasons to stop exercise versus reasons to keep trying to modify. So that is question number 3. And then the last question, number 4, was another theme that we talked about pretty fluidly throughout the whole night. And that was like, what is the starting point for exercise? Should we start modified and then build them up from there? Should we make it so that all pregnant moms have to do this variation? What amount of springs should we do for this movement for pregnant moms? And so we kind of tweaked out the language a little bit of what to use or how to express this, and then also like a framework to go based off of. And it boiled down to kind of 2 buckets. So for those who, let me try to frame this up. So for beginners, and there's a lot of things to think about when a beginner is starting a new activity, whether it be Pilates or CrossFit or functional fitness or group class, whatever it is, running too. For those people, I would opt to have them start at the modified or base of whatever it is that you guys are doing in class. And then if that feels good, build them to the next thing. Progressive overload in a nutshell. So if you have a beginner coming in, starting them at the easier part and letting them figure it out and then building up. So it's just for that subgroup of people. However, if somebody is experienced in that field, whether it be Pilates, CrossFit, weight training, whatever, I would start them the opposite of starting them at their normal, at the whatever the whole class is doing, and then let them see and feel if that is feeling good and appropriate or if it's sparking stuff, and then modify back from there. So 2 different types of athletes or people that are doing that activity, but we're starting them at totally different ends of the spectrum, depending on their fitness history, their mindset, and their personal comfort level. Those are really the overarching things that we are trying to dig into first. It's not necessarily, oh, if you're 20 weeks pregnant, or, oh, if you're in the 3rd trimester, this is the movement that you guys are all going to start with. It has to be very personalized, very individualized. There are no blanket statements of like, everybody's going to start with this weight or everyone's going to start with this modification. We really need to take their history and their background into account and use that as a guiding post to where to start them within the workout itself, with a movement specifically, and then we adjust from there. So in general, my framework is for beginners. There's already so many other things to think about, and we need to get form and foundation set first. Let's start them at the easier end of the spectrum, the modified versions, and then we build them up. And then opposite, for those who are seasoned in that activity, let's start them, not to even start them, let's just let them do what they're going to do anyways. Let them express or feel it out symptoms wise, or just like how their body's feeling. And then we modify down or taper back from there. This is for pregnancy specifically. So again, those were 4 main topics, or 4 things. We talked for 4.5 hours almost on all of this stuff. So there's so much more that goes into it, but I wanted to make a podcast while this was all fresh in my brain. It was so much fun. This is why I love doing my coach certification in person, because there's so much value in that dialogue, in that feedback, in that real time, and seeing stuff and practicing it on yourself, versus just like reading a textbook or watching some videos, which are all educational and helpful too. That's part of my coach's course as well. I have a 70-page workbook and an online courses video module. So you have all these, pieces coming together. But that in-person time is just so much fun to spend with coaches and just people wanting to learn and help out their pregnant and postpartum clients even more, which is exciting for you guys if you are a mom yourself and just wanting this information for yourself. Just knowing that there's more coaches out there that are trying to support you in whatever activity it is that you love. So with all of that, I will see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Mother Figures podcast. If these episodes help or resonate with you in any way, it would be so helpful to the show if you could leave a review so we can get this into more moms' hands. And if you're looking for even more guidance and direction when it comes to pregnancy and postpartum fitness, I got you covered. My Mother Figures app subscription includes my Figure Pregnancy and Figure Postpartum workout programs, in addition to our general fitness programs. You'll get the day-by-day workouts you need to help you feel strong, pain-free, and labor-ready during pregnancy, and also the recovery, strength, and progressions you'll need to get back to the activities you love, full of strength and without symptoms after baby arrives. If you're local to the Brighton, Michigan area, I also host daily women's functional fitness classes, a 6-week postpartum return to fitness course, and pregnancy and postpartum consultation sessions. For those who are providers, coaches, or practitioners in the space, I hold a live Mother Figures certification course that equips you with the knowledge, tools, and confidence to train and work with this population. For information on all of these services and programs, make sure to check out fitisgettingreal.com/moms or head to the show notes for the direct link. I'm so thankful that you tuned in today's episode, and I will catch you next time.